America has never met a bad idea it couldn't turn into a business plan. Somehow we keep mistaking disaster waiting to happen for entrepreneurial spirit. And if you think that's an exaggeration, oh, you haven't seen anything yet. 1. A man once decided his destiny was to become the Jeff Bezos of sandwich innovation, which already tells you this story is going somewhere tragic. His concept? A restaurant that only served bread. Not sandwiches, not toast, just bread. Different shapes of the same carbohydrate, handed to customers like sacred offerings. He dumped his savings into a storefront, bought industrial mixers, and hired a graphic designer to create a logo that looked suspiciously like a kindergarten drawing of a dinner roll. The business model fell apart almost immediately. Apparently, Americans prefer food that contains other food. And within a month, he'd learned the timeless truth that carbohydrates alone cannot support a retail lease. His final marketing attempt was introducing the bread flight, which was really just 3 slices on a wooden plank. That didn't work either. Shockingly, the public was not ready for a restaurant built entirely around the world's most boring food group. 2. There was a woman who sincerely believed she could revolutionize pet care by creating a luxury spa exclusively for turtles, complete with heated stones, cucumber shell facials, and something she called reptile aromatherapy. Her investors, meaning 2 cousins who weren't paying attention, backed the plan until the grand opening, where attendance consisted of exactly 1 confused 8-year-old holding a plastic tank and a turtle that appeared to be asleep or spiritually elsewhere. She spent thousands on branded robes, despite no turtle requesting or needing one, and promoted deep tissue turtle massages, which was basically just her poking their shells like they were doorbells. The entire business folded in under 2 weeks, mainly because turtles do not experience stress, do not need massages, and do not possess the disposable income required to sustain a wellness empire. 3. A man attempted to launch a subscription box service dedicated entirely to rare air, insisting that customers wanted monthly jars of atmosphere from exotic locations. He traveled to the countryside, waved mason jars around like he was catching fireflies, sealed them, slapped on labels like Alaskan Glacier Breeze, and sold them for $39.99. For a brief moment, he believed he had captured lightning in a bottle, except lightning, unlike air, is at least visible. Problems appeared when customers complained that every jar of rare air smelled exactly like nothing and tasted exactly like oxygen. Some even asked for refunds because the jars arrived half full, not realizing that gas moves when shipped. The business collapsed after someone realized he was essentially selling empty jars to people who were bored, impressionable, or both. It turns out the market for artisanal air is shocking, non-existent. 4. A very optimistic couple decided America was ready for a drive-through yoga studio, which raises the immediate question: how? Their pitch claimed people didn't have time to exercise, so they deserved express yoga delivered through their car window like caffeine or regret. They built lanes, hired instructors with headsets, and crafted routines that lasted 45 seconds. Drivers rolled up, stretched an arm while holding a latte, bent slightly at the hip, and then were told their session was complete. The business lasted exactly as long as it took customers to realize that stretching in a car is just stretching in a car and does not magically become spiritual because someone whispered namaste through a speaker system. The couple eventually closed shop, leaving behind the only yoga studio in America designed to increase stress, not reduce it. 5. One entrepreneur believed the next great American innovation was silent karaoke, a concept so self-contradictory it practically folds in on itself. His idea was to rent a warehouse, hand out noise-canceling headphones, and have customers sing aloud, silently to themselves, while believing they were part of a collective musical moment. What actually happened was a room full of strangers shouting off-key lyrics into the void like confused goats. Visitors took off their headphones, heard the raw chaos, and fled. The owner panicked and tried to incorporate interpretive movement, which just made the whole thing look like a flash mob that had lost its sense of purpose. Investors bailed after one session, declaring it the most unsettling chorus ever assembled. Silent karaoke died, loudly. 6. A man was convinced he'd revolutionize transportation with a service that delivered people by wheelbarrow. He claimed it was eco-friendly, nostalgic, and disruptive, which is Silicon Valley code for "no one asked for this." He bought dozens of wheelbarrows, painted them with inspirational quotes, and hired college students to push customers for $5 per quarter mile. The service faced several issues, including speed, dignity, and the fact that no adult wants to travel hunched like an exhausted sack of potatoes. The final blow came when a customer, at a business meeting no less, arrived with dirt on their suit and realized they had literally paid someone to transport them like landscaping debris. The company folded, and the wheelbarrows were last seen at a community garden, fulfilling their original, far more reasonable purpose. 7. A man opened a store that sold only left shoes, proudly calling it a genius niche business. He purchased liquidation pallets of mismatched footwear, organized them by color, and waited for customers who had tragically lost exactly one right shoe and desperately needed a replacement. That customer never arrived. He ignored suggestions to sell both shoes because he insisted that filling a gap in the market required stubborn commitment. The store closed when he realized he had accidentally created a graveyard of footwear destined for no one. Even thrift stores refused his inventory, leaving him with mountains of perfectly good left shoes that would forever remain single, unloved, and entirely non-viable as a business model. 8. A would-be mogul decided he could corner the food delivery market by offering a service that delivered half-eaten meals from influencers. Yes, food someone else already ate. He marketed it as authentic bite-sharing and claimed fans would pay premium prices for leftovers from people they admired. The health department disagreed. The influencers disagreed. Even the influencers' pets disagreed. The concept died instantly once customers realized they were being asked to purchase reheated forks of someone else's decision-making. The entrepreneur defended the plan until the bitter end, insisting the idea wasn't flawed. People were, which is an interesting position for a man trying to sell cold, secondhand spaghetti to strangers. 9. One person poured everything into creating a chain of 24/7 nap centers, essentially dark rooms filled with cots that customers could rent by the hour. It turns out most Americans either nap in their cars for free or do not trust a strip mall nap facility operated by someone who describes sleep as the next frontier of profit. Reviews complained of snoring, questionable blankets, and the distinct vibe of a place where a villain in a thriller might hide. The owner tried offering themed nap rooms like Corporate Escape and Desert Breeze, which were identical except for a single poster. The business shut down after someone pointed out that none of this solved any real problem, except the owner's inability to accept that napping is not a franchise-ready experience. 10. A duo of extremely confident brothers launched a service where customers could rent a stranger to break bad news for them. Relationship endings, job resignations, HOA disputes, you name it. These two believed they could deliver it with professional calm. What they actually delivered was emotional shrapnel. Clients complained that the brothers went off script, improvised dramatic monologues, and once broke up with someone using a PowerPoint presentation titled, "It's not you, it's your everything." The business fell apart when someone hired them to quit a job on their behalf, and they accidentally insulted the entire management team, resulting in the client being fired and banned from the premises. Turns out outsourcing human responsibility is not the explosive industry they imagined. 11. A self-proclaimed visionary launched a chain of extreme minimalism stores where customers were encouraged to buy as little as possible. Each store was nearly empty, selling only one product per week. That product might be a pencil, or a small rock, or absolutely nothing except the concept of choosing not to buy. Customers walked in, looked around, and left, making perfect sense since the entire business model encouraged them to not participate. The owner insisted the experience was transformative, but the bank account insisted otherwise. Eventually, the stores became so minimal that they closed themselves out of existence, achieving the truest form of the brand's philosophy. 12. Someone attempted to create a luxury scent rental company where customers could rent high-end perfumes for a day. The problem? People do not want to smell like rented fragrance. The owner ignored warnings about hygiene, chemistry, and basic human boundaries. Customers complained the perfumes arrived half full, mixed with other scents, or somehow smelled like desperation. One reviewer described their rental as ode to previous customer, which was not the premium aroma advertised. The founder tried pivoting to scent-sharing communities, which only made it worse. The company quietly evaporated, much like the perfume inventory it couldn't keep track of. 13. A man spent years developing an app that told you the optimal time to drink water, not as in hydration reminders, those already exist, but as in personalized water scheduling based on vibrational hydration algorithms. a phrase that should have immediately disqualified the entire project. He pitched it as a wellness revolution, even though the algorithm was essentially a timer with confidence issues. The app gained a small user base of people who enjoyed being scolded by their phones, but it tanked once critics discovered it, sometimes recommended drinking water at intervals so frequent it resembled a power washing routine. Investors bailed, and the developer insisted the world simply wasn't ready for hyperhydration. Perhaps not, or perhaps no one needs a subscription service to sip water. 14. A woman launched a business selling inspirational stones, ordinary pebbles she found in her driveway. She cleaned them, wrote words like courage and believe on them, and priced them at $29 each, a number chosen not for symbolism but because it felt powerful. People bought them briefly, mostly out of pity or curiosity, until someone publicly pointed out that they were, in fact, driveway rocks with motivational Sharpie. Sales plummeted. She attempted a last-minute rebrand by calling them geological affirmation units, but the public had moved on. The stones eventually returned to the driveway, probably feeling more grounded than the business plan ever was. 15. One hopeful inventor created a device that claimed to recharge human energy fields using a tangle of Christmas lights attached to a folding chair. He demonstrated it at fairs, insisting customers sit in the chair while he plugged it in. Thankfully, not to an outlet, just a battery pack that blinked weakly like it was embarrassed to be involved. The chair vibrated randomly, lights flickered, and he declared the customer energetically restored, as if the human body was a low-battery phone. Eventually, an electrician pointed out that the device did absolutely nothing except rattle nervously. Sales dropped overnight, and the inventor abandoned the project, leaving behind only the memory of a chair that looked like it was built by someone who misunderstood both spirituality and electricity in equal measure. 16. A man decided the world was ready for emotional support vending machines, devices he claimed would dispense comfort through pre-recorded affirmations and a lukewarm cup of herbal tea. He bought 7 used vending machines from a warehouse liquidation, repainted them pastel colors, and programmed them to deliver phrases like "You're doing great" and "Have you tried not worrying?" Which is exactly the kind of advice that feels like it was written by someone who has never experienced a problem. His downfall came when customers realized the machines frequently malfunctioned and began issuing extremely unhelpful messages such as "error, confidence not found," or "tea temperature emotionally concerning." One machine even jammed and repeated, "You are valid" 70 times in a row, which terrified a customer into believing the machine was either possessed or aggressively supportive. Within a month, every machine had been unplugged, mostly because people preferred getting advice from actual humans rather than a metal box having an existential crisis. 17. There was a woman who became convinced she could disrupt the cleaning industry by offering a subscription dusting service for people who hated chores but loved monthly payments. She marketed it as revolutionary, even though dusting is something you can accomplish with a dollar store cloth and 10 seconds of motivation. Her employees were instructed to enter homes armed with what she called dust-neutralizing wands, which were really just fancy feather dusters with motivational stickers. The service started collapsing when customers realized she didn't actually remove dust, but simply redistributed it, like a bored magician performing the saddest sleight of hand in recorded history. Complaints escalated after she introduced tiered memberships, including a premium dusting experience that involved lighting a scented candle and declaring the room energetically refreshed. As it turns out, dust is not an industry waiting to be monetized, and customers generally dislike paying to remain exactly as dirty as when they started. 18. One particularly confident man attempted to start a gym where patrons never worked out, which he described as fitness for people who hate fitness. The concept was simple. Customers would pay a membership fee to enter a nicely decorated room where they could think about working out while doing absolutely nothing. He argued that intention was half the battle, and therefore worth at least half the cost of a real gym. The business failed spectacularly when a customer reported the experience as paying for quiet disappointment, and others noticed the space offered the same amenities as their living rooms, minus the comfort, snacks, and basic common sense. His attempt to rebrand as a mindfulness athletic center only drew more attention to the fact that the treadmill in the corner had never been plugged in. Eventually, he closed the gym, presumably after realizing that charging people to sit down was not the fitness revolution he imagined. 19. A woman burned through her savings, creating what she called America's first luxury lemonade brokerage, insisting that artisanal lemonade would become the next Silicon Valley breakthrough. She sourced lemons from places that did not need to be sourced from, hired a branding specialist to design bottles shaped like raindrops, and priced each drink as if it were handcrafted from liquid gold. The business crumbled when customers realized it tasted exactly like every lemonade ever made since the beginning of time. Her attempt to justify the price by calling it emotionally cleansing citrus therapy didn't help. Things got worse when she launched a subscription model, sending weekly boxes of lemonade to people who had clearly forgotten they signed up. After several refund demands and one confused customer who thought they were being harassed by a lemon-based cult, the company folded, leaving behind a warehouse full of overpriced juice and shattered citrus dreams. 20. A man tried to monetize professional pacing for anxious office workers, advertising himself as someone who would walk nervously for you so you didn't have to. His theory was that outsourcing your stress-related pacing would free your brain for productivity, as if biological anxiety could be delegated like clerical work. He paced outside offices, hallways, and even coffee shops, logging steps with a fitness tracker he treated like sacred scripture. The downfall came when clients realized his pacing did absolutely nothing for their anxiety, but did significantly confuse passersby who thought he was casing the building. His attempt to scale the business by hiring a team of synchronized pacers, essentially a chorus line of worried pedestrians, only made everything look like a flash mob rehearsing for an intervention. Eventually, demand evaporated, leaving one man still pacing, possibly out of habit, possibly out of denial, but definitely not out of business sense. 21. Someone launched an app that claimed to schedule arguments for couples to improve emotional efficiency. Yes, arguments assigned like dentist appointments. Users could select categories such as mild annoyance, lingering resentment, or full dramatic episode, and the app would notify both parties at a supposedly optimal time. The creator believed this would reduce stress, but it turns out most couples prefer spontaneous conflict to receiving a push notification reading, "You have a disagreement scheduled in 10 minutes. Please hydrate." The app tanked once customers discovered it occasionally glitched and scheduled 3 arguments in a row on holidays or during family gatherings, creating chaos that, shockingly, no one wanted. The founder's pitch on TV, where he called unplanned arguments inefficient emotional overflows, did not help. The company folded shortly afterward, leaving behind the only product in history that actively encouraged people to fight on a schedule. 22. A man became convinced Americans would buy vegan water, claiming his product was ethically sourced from streams that had never interacted with animal consciousness. No one knew what that meant, including the founder. He sold bottles with labels depicting serene forests and emotionally stable droplets of water. When critics pointed out that all water is inherently vegan unless an alligator is swimming in it, he doubled down, insisting his water was morally elevated. The downfall came after a lab test revealed his premium water was chemically identical to tap water, except for slightly higher levels of disappointment. Customers quickly abandoned the brand, especially after he attempted to launch gluten-free ice cubes and cruelty-free steam. Eventually, he disappeared from the wellness scene, presumably to start a new business misunderstanding something even more basic. 23. One entrepreneur tried creating a restaurant where customers cooked their own meals entirely from scratch. Not like a trendy DIY grill place, but truly everything including washing dishes, prepping ingredients, and sweeping the floor after. His pitch was that people wanted the fulfillment of work without the burden of being paid for it. He called it an immersive culinary labor experience, which is CEO speak for "come do chores and pay me for the privilege." Customers arrived, chopped vegetables, stirred pots, and then suddenly realized they were doing unpaid restaurant work while the owner watched like a proud camp counselor. Reviews were brutal, describing the experience as meal prep disguised as a social experiment. His closing week featured a tragic attempt at rebranding, claiming customers were co-chefs in a community of flavor. The health department rejected that explanation, and the lights went out for good. 24. A man decided the world urgently needed a premium subscription service that emailed customers compliments. Not personalized ones, just generic compliments like "nice job existing today" or "your presence is acceptable." He called it Confidence Cloud and charged $14.99 a month for what was essentially mildly supportive spam. The cracks formed quickly when customers noticed the compliments repeated often and occasionally contradicted each other, such as receiving, "You have a calming presence" at 8 a.m. and "Your energy is chaotic yet intriguing" at noon. One customer canceled after receiving the compliment, "Consistency is your greatest strength," 3 times in a single day. The founder attempted to salvage the business by offering premium-tier compliments, but people weren't eager to pay extra for slightly longer sentences. Confidence cloud drifted apart shortly after, proving that affirmation as a service has its limits. 25. A man invested his entire inheritance into building a virtual reality grocery store, claiming shopping in VR would eliminate stress. The problem was that customers still had to do real-world grocery shopping after removing the headset, making the entire experience equivalent to commuting twice. His VR store included aisles you could walk down, digital carts that squeaked for realism, and checkout lanes staffed by artificial cashiers who still asked if you'd found everything okay. The fatal issue was that groceries could not be delivered, purchased, or even reserved. The entire system was just a simulation of an errand. After one reviewer described it as cosplaying as my own exhausted self, interest plummeted. The founder quietly shut it down, presumably while reflecting on whether a simulation of a chore should have ever been considered a business. 26. There was a woman who decided she could corner the aromatherapy market by selling candles shaped like famous historical figures, insisting people wanted to meditate beside wax versions of Beethoven or George Washington. Each candle came with a scented profile inspired by the subject, which was a poetic way of saying she guessed. Customers were confused when Washington smelled like patriotic pine, and Beethoven allegedly smelled like stormy genius, a fragrance that resembled wet socks and ambition. Sales sagged once buyers realized the candles melted into uncanny puddles that made their living rooms look like crime scenes at a wax museum. The business staggered along until she introduced the Shakespeare candle, which ignited a small controversy when melted and resembled a frowning potato. That was the end of the candle empire, though the founder claimed it wasn't failure, just historically informed transformation. 27. A startup founder attempted to create a productivity retreat located inside a giant, windowless warehouse, which he described as a sanctuary free from outside distraction. In reality, it felt like a cross between a self-help seminar and a hostage situation. Guests paid obscene amounts of money to sit in beige rooms lit by fluorescent lights, while an efficiency coach reminded them that time is money, and they were wasting both. The warehouse had no clocks, creating a timeless void that was supposed to enhance focus, but mostly sparked existential dread. Guests left reviews noting the eerie silence, the unsettling smell of industrial floor polish, and the profound realization that they could have been productive at home for free. The founder blamed consumer misunderstanding for the collapse, though most people understood perfectly. They just didn't enjoy paying to feel like they were trapped inside a motivational poster printed by someone who hates joy. 28. Someone tried launching a company that delivered personalized apologies, handwritten letters expressing remorse on behalf of people who didn't want to apologize themselves. Business boomed briefly among customers who preferred third-party guilt outsourcing, but problems arose when the apology writers got tired of pretending to be emotionally invested. Letters became increasingly blunt, including lines like, "They're sorry, I guess," and "Please consider this apology acceptable so we can all move on." One particularly disastrous letter ended with, "Sincerely, the person who paid me $19. Clients were horrified, relationships suffered, and the founder insisted the issue was tone misalignment, which is a polite way of saying the writers had given up entirely. The company eventually folded, leaving behind a legacy of half-hearted remorse and several relationships that somehow became worse after receiving professional apologies. 29. A very motivated man launched a business renting out inspiration rocks, which were smooth stones he would place strategically around customers' homes to encourage creativity. His sales pitch claimed the rocks emitted motivational frequencies that heightened focus and banished procrastination. Customers soon discovered the rocks did nothing except exist quietly, like every rock ever. Some even reported tripping over them, which did inspire creativity, but only in the sense that they invented new swear words. The business fumbled through a few rebrands, including productivity pebbles and success stones, before collapsing entirely when a geologist on social media pointed out They were ordinary landscaping rocks anyone could purchase by the pound. The founder declared the failure a misunderstanding of metaphysical potential, which is an elegant way of saying no one wanted to pay for rocks with delusions of grandeur. And that's the grand tour of financial self-destruction. Pick your favorite disaster in the comments because clearly the competition is fierce. Like, subscribe, and brace yourself. America's got plenty more where this came from.